Hello everyone and welcome. As Superintendent of Schools, I have learned something about each and every one of you over the past 4 years that we've been on this journey together. I have learned that you are dedicated, you are professional, you are loyal, and you are hardworking. Today I'd like to share with you an important message that will maximize the use of these 4 characteristics in your classrooms with every child, every day. So let's start with each of you as an individual teacher in your classroom. What will be your impact on your students' achievement? Hattie is a researcher who has compiled many studies to look at the long-term effects of student learning and student achievement. Involving over 250 million students worldwide, found that there is a preferred zone of desired effects, things that we can do in the classroom to maximize our time with our students. And then there's the typical effects of the teacher, the developmental effects, and the reverse effects. Through these meta-analysis, he's determined that 0.40 is 1 year's growth, student growth. Anything less than that, you're getting less than a year's worth of growth. Anything more than that is more than a year's worth of growth. As he's looked at these different influences, he's found that if we have a safe culture of collaborative expertise, which we have tried to foster over these last 4 years through PLCs and making it a safe place for teachers and students to learn, and we hold high expectations for both our students and our teachers and our leaders, we will have an effect size of 1.44. Now remember, 1.44 is off the scales. So when we have that growth mindset, not that the kids have to learn it right now, but really every student, every teacher, every leader has the potential to achieve at high levels. We see this in some of our data rooms. This is one of a high school in our district where they display their student outcomes as well as their grades given, attendance by the students, and then they identify individual students and their weaknesses or where they need to help students and help them improve in their academics. We also know that if we have hired expert and inspired, passionate teachers and administrators that have that passion to ensure that we have impactful Tier 1 instruction in the classroom, we will be able to see tremendous growth in our students. Impactful Tier 1 instruction is essential. So when we go back to Hattie, he identifies over 150 of these effect studies. In the blue, you can see the most effective strategies that can be used within the classroom, such as having high student expectations, and you see the effect size there is 1.44. A response to intervention, that means intervening in a student's learning, 1.07. This can easily be done within a 90-minute period if you identify those students that have a need and then intervene with their learning. Formative teacher evaluation, very effective, 0.90. Teacher clarity, that means knowing exactly what is expected of the students, what does success look like, and making sure that students get there. Giving prompt and immediate student feedback, not correcting papers or handing them back a day or two later, but really having students identify where their mistakes are and making sure that that information gets to them quickly so that they can correct any mislearnings that they might have had. Teacher-student relationships, look at this, 0.72. If we want our students to grow, we have got to make sure that we have good student relationships with them so that what we're telling them is received. Some of these other effects are less important, but nevertheless, they do have an effect. Parent involvement, 0.41, and that's something that we certainly all want to have for our students. Let's look at homework for a second. You can see that the effect size is 0.29, but when you break this out, you can see that in the primary homework, not so much important, but in the secondary, very important. And very important to assign homework that is meaningful, something that the student already knows how to do, not something new that they have to learn on their own, but rather some type of homework that reinforces their learning that has taken place in the classroom. This was interesting. The teacher's subject matter knowledge. That's not to say that we don't need teacher subject matter knowledge, but these effects up here that teachers employ help that knowledge transmit to the student in a meaningful way. It kind of reminds me of presentation of a meal. You want to make sure that you dish it up so that it's appetizing for students. Here's an example of one of our high schools where they have targeted certain learners in their high school and then have assigned mentors. And in fact, these mentors have worked alongside students, and these are ways that we look at every child every day. Even student mentors have been assigned in different high schools to make sure that students that are struggling and need extra support have that. Another way that we look at every child every day is through the use of some type of database. Now, Mastery Connect has been purchased for use in schools. However, there has to be some way to keep track of the different standards that students know or do not know, and then having collaborative conversations within PLCs so that teachers are learning from each other about best practices and how to deliver the curriculum in a most effective manner. Lesson plans are essential for learning. In this lesson plan, you can see that there are objectives identified, but you also see that there are students identified. So in this lesson plan, this secondary teacher has identified students who need extra help and or remediation with a certain standard. Here is an accommodation that has been listed within the lesson plan so that individual students, every child every day, once again is put into practice. This is a secondary teacher. You can see that here are some of the standards listed over on the left, and then the initials of students who did not master that standard within each period. This teacher knows that she needs to go back and reteach that lesson for those specific students. You see in period 4, that must have happened right after lunch. We've got to reteach probably the whole lesson because we've got far too many students that did not master the standard. Here is where acceleration, and within a 90-minute period, remediation and acceleration can happen after you assess which students were able to master the standard for the day. This particular lesson plan lists students that need acceleration because they have already mastered the standard. So within our work in PLCs, we work on individual students, and teachers and administrators share the evidence of the impact on their students with the lessons that they have previously taught. Here is a video clip of one of our PLCs just starting to work on Mastery Connect. And you can see that it's a very safe environment where its teachers are learning from one another.
I had 16, wait, no, that's about the same. I had 16 kids get it right and 5 kids not. So, I mean, you just have a little bit more kids than me, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, they did really good on number 2.
Yep.
Just not on number 1.
But that was just misreading the directions. So we had to go back and look at
So
that.
then we went and talked about it.
But
see,
is it, do they know the difference between place and value?
Okay. When you go back and talk to them. But see, this
Definitely.
one's comparing us too, so we can see it.
Oh, yeah.
I just didn't put my name
Way to go.
in. I know, I'm such a slacker.
But you can see, like, number 4, I mean, number 5,
Yeah.
my kids kind of struggled on.
And then we can see down here where we need to remediate. See, I still
How
gotta
can
go
you tell
back.
the questions, what questions they are?
So
I'm
this
sorry,
is
I am-
standard. This is for
Okay.
NBT.
This is the
That's going to be
standard.
your standard.
And that's
then
what's
item
in your book here.
analysis, question 1,
Yes, okay.
is
all right.
how you know which question
Yeah.
it is.
So as you can see, a safe collaborative environment is very important, as well as going back and looking at, was it the way the question was asked, or did the students really not master the content? In PLCs, we need to make sure that we have a shared understanding of what student success looks like. So within the database of Mastery Connect, you can identify what mastery looks like, and then you have a tool to help you identify which students need the remediation and which students have mastered the content. When we talk about assessments, I think it's clear that in PLCs we are using assessments not just to measure their learning, but really to shape it. We find out from formative assessments where students are, and then we move students forward from that place, using assessments to shape their learning, not just to measure it. Listen in while this master teacher explains how she uses formative assessments in order to determine which students need the remediation.
I think that most students are used to having assessments be punitive, and that's the only measure that they're used to. So they take a test and that tells them whether apparently they were right or wrong, and they view that in a sense as whether they're smart or dumb end of the spectrum. which I've never liked those labels, so I do very frequent assessments that are short, and students can redo them. So this individual, we talked about something yesterday. She took a short assessment today. It took 5 minutes. She got 2 out of 4 on our grade scale. So she got the majority of it. She's missing one piece. And these 2 individuals got 3 out of 4. So we clarified what they were missing, and then they'll just come in tomorrow and then try again to prove to me that I have mastered that standard. And so the thing that I've found by doing it this way is students are far less anxious about a so-called assessment or a test, whatever name you want to put on it. But I can get a really specific idea of what they do know and what they don't.
So when we develop a safe culture of collaborative expertise in our PLCs, we do our very best work. We can talk to each other and to our students about the high expectations we have for them as learners. Because I know and are so grateful for your expertise, your inspiration, and your passion that you have for teaching. I know that you can ensure that impactful Tier 1 instruction that should happen in every classroom. As we work together as teachers and administrators and looking at the evidence of the impact we make on student lives and on their academic achievement, we do better. Each one of us should have a shared understanding of what student success looks like in each particular classroom and then for each particular standard. And as a collaborative group of experts, we use assessments to shape our students' learning, not just to measure it. We also know teachers working together as evaluators of their impact on their students' learning has an effect size of 0.93. Now remember, 0.40 is 1 year's worth of growth. So as we work together and look at the impact, look at the evidence, look at the student outcomes that we have after our teaching, and evaluate what are the better strategies in order for our students to learn, we have a 0.93 effect size on our students' learning. So really, my question to you today is, this year, what will be your impact on your students' learning? Again, thank you so much for the amazing work that you do in our classrooms each and every day. Together, we will make a significant impact on the lives of every child, every day in Jordan School District.
We believe in you.